Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Organ 360, past, present, and beyond. Welcome to St. Alphonsus Parish. I'm and welcoming you on behalf of the parish and on behalf of the Windsor-Essex Centre of the Royal Canadian College of Organists. This afternoon, we will embark on a musical journey with Organ 360, past, present, and beyond. We will showcase the rich history and the versatility of the organ, an instrument that has been a cornerstone of musical expression for centuries. We will look at the pipe organ from all different perspectives: its history, its versatility, its uses over the years, and its evolving role in culture and the community, bringing people together with a sense of continuity. The pipe organ is often referred to as the king of instruments. It's the largest instrument in the world, played by a single person. It boasts a remarkable range of sounds, from the delicate tones of the flutes to the powerful roar of a trumpet, all controlled by the hands and the feet of the organist. So our journey today begins with the ancient origins of the pipe organ. The fundamental tool that evolved out of the pipe organ was the bamboo flute. Thereafter, when the bamboo flutes were assembled together, a pan flute was created. With its series of pipes of varying lengths, it laid the groundwork for the development of the pipe organ. The journey then continues with the hydraulis in ancient Greece, which used water pressure to create sound. And then water pressure was replaced with wind power using a single bellow, followed by multiple and even larger bellows, requiring sometimes several workers to lift open spent bellows with levers and ropes and other mechanisms, including their feet. And they pump those pedals all through the performance of the organ, behind the scenes and out of sight. Large organs were furnished with 4 or 5 or even more bells at the rear, and as technology evolved, it paved the way for the grandeur of the Baroque era, where the pipe organ became a symbol of both church and monarchy. During this time, the organ was the most complex machine ever created before the Industrial Revolution, before the invention of the telephone. Today, we're going to celebrate the organ's enduring significance with performances by talented local artists. They will guide contains 6 pieces, 3 of which are estampis. These are considered the earliest surviving pieces of music, specifically for a keyboard instrument, with the organ being the most likely candidate. Ron Bach is going to play one of these estampis from the collection. Estampis is actually a medieval dance, and it's used in the form of a hoquette technique. Now, if you know French, you know the word foray. In French means to hiccup. So if you look at the music that you see in front of you, you will see that the music varies between line to line, between voices, creating a hiccuping effect. And you'll be able to see this as you see the manuscript as it looks today. These manuscripts predate the more well-known organ works of later periods, such as those for composers Johann Sebastian Bach and Felix Mendelssohn, providing a valuable glimpse into the development of organ music. So let's now listen to the very oldest piece of organ music ever written down. Ron. We've come a long way in music composition, as I'm sure you've seen through the course of the afternoon. We're both honored and delighted to have with us today one of Canada's leading organ recitalists, Frederick. As you can see from the program notes, Frederick has an impressive background in organ performance, having given recitals internationally and held distinguished positions over the years. And he's chosen to play for us the next four pieces in our program. Nicholas Gagné and J.S. Bach were both influential organists and composers, although they were relatively contemporaries. Their style was distinct and reflected from each other and respective of their own musical environments. For example, Nicholas Gagné's compositions are quintessentially French Baroque, characterized by elaborate ornamentation and rich and expressive harmonic language. His works were primarily intended for the church rooms and are often based on Gregorian chants and themes as evident in his Eulogia, Sur le Grange, and Trio of the Equation. J.S. Bach's style is a hallmark of German Baroque, characterized by polyphonic texture and structural clarity. His works for the organ range from preludes like to complex fugues with extensive thematic development, as you will hear here in his fugue in G minor, which is affectionately called the Little Fugue. Now, as Fred is about to play for us, I would encourage you, though, to allow the music of these pieces to unfold uninterrupted. So please hold your just well-deserved applause until after the Little Fugue. Thank you. And please welcome Frederick. survive the Baroque tradition, particularly Bach, but they incorporate an emotional depth and dynamic contrast typical of the romantic area. Sonata in C minor, opus 65 number 2, is a remarkable piece that highlights Mendelssohn's mastery of the organ and his ability to blend Baroque influences with romantic expressiveness. The sonata in C minor is structured in 4 movements. The opening moving begins with a psalm and stately finale, which transitions into a lyrical and expressive adagio. And then the next movement is a lively and majestic allegro, followed by a spirited and joyful allegro mollando, bringing the sonata to a triumphant and uplifting conclusion. And once again, I invite you to let the silence between each of the movements serve as moments of anticipation as you reserve your applause for the very end of the piece. Welcome, Michael Ricketts. It's the organ's ability to make such different and supportive sounds to create a harmonic foundation upon which the melodies and the instrumentation that's written above the organ can be heard. In the next piece of our program, you will hear a beautiful arrangement of the hymn prelude, O God, Beyond All Praising, by renowned composer Charles Callahan. Originally composed for solo organ, this piece has been thoughtfully adapted to include the lyrical and expressive tones of the flute, creating a harmonious and uplifting duet. The organ provides the foundation, and the flute's clear and melodic voice carries the hymn theme with grace and elegance. And together, these two instruments blend seamlessly, enhancing the spiritual and the emotional depth of music. So today we're very delighted to welcome Mary and Jeanette, who will be playing a solo prelude on the flute, joined by Michael on the organ. suited for the heartfelt and melancholic nature of ballads and jazz improvisation. Please now join me in welcoming Henry and Rob Pascash as they perform Melody for Change. One of the more significant and more likely known roles of the organ is its role in liturgy. In religious services, the pipe organ is used to accompany congregational singing, to enhance the liturgical atmosphere by music sessions and other ceremonial functions. Its powerful, majestic sound can elevate the spiritual experience of the congregation, and we're going to participate in the next piece, which has been written by David Carl, our next organist. It's entitled A Ode for David Palmer. most days across the parish of St. Alphonsus, this beautiful church with its awesome sanctuary and magnificent organ. Mike Ricketts has been the organist here for many years, and he'd like to bring you greetings on behalf of the parish and speak briefly about the organ which we are celebrating today.
I wish to extend a welcome to all of you on behalf of Father Timothy, our pastor. He regrets that he had to be out of town today. But we welcome you very much to St. Alphonsus. We hope this is the first of many programs of this sort. We're hoping maybe a Sunday afternoon series. And hopefully people will come back. Like what you've heard. A little bit about the organ. Where to begin? I'll make it brief. I'll start at the end and go backwards. I know more about what's happened in the past 30 years. Paul and Kim, the wonderful organ builder from Chatham, started a rebuild here in 1995. And it's still not done because we do it as we can afford to do it. And so it's respectable now, but we still have a long way to go if we're going to complete the original plan. It began with, the organ rebuild began with a donation from outside the parish, a significant donation that was the seed money that got us started. And then we had a few other large donations from outside the parish. And then my blessed choir has made up the difference. My choir members have been very generous in supporting the organ fund because, as you can see, this is a very old building, and upkeep of the building is very great. So we can't compete with that. So we don't solicit money from our parishioners. The choir looks after that job. And events like this will help fund the organ fund, and maybe we can add a few more ranks and pipes as planned. Or not. We'll see. We'll see. I'm trying to think of what else. I think that, so going back briefly, the pipes date back to the 1800s. The pipes are lay, L-Y-E, and this was an organ builder in the 1800s up to I think about 1920 or 1930, and from around Woodstock and that part of the world. And they say that it was lay was like the Ontario's version of Castleknock. Castleknock being in Quebec. So where to go with this? As we were renovating the organ, Paul and Kim came across another lay organ in a church that was going to be demolished. And they said, what a shame, it has an organ very similar to yours. So that became another impetus for the organ fund. So we purchased the organ and added most of those parts and replaced many of the things that needed replaced in ours. So we've been very lucky, very lucky. Things have come together for this organ fund. 30 years ago we started this. I never dreamed that we would make it this far, but we have a long way to go. So at any rate, thank you again for being here. Feel free afterwards if you want to go upstairs and have a look, you're welcome to. But stay away from the railing. It's a long way down. Be careful when you go upstairs. So thanks again.
Well, it's time for a commercial break. And if you'll permit me, I'd like to talk minutes about the Windsor-Essex Center of the Royal Canadian College of Organists, USCCO. In addition to organizing concerts like this one and providing support and professional development to our members, we are particularly proud of our scholarship program for beginning organists. They represent the future of organists, not just necessarily the future of church organists, but the future of organists in general. broader perspective we can make and use in the organ, it makes it more appealing for young people. That's a lovely segue into my introduction of the next performer in our program, Leslie Yee. Leslie attends Legacy Oak Trail Elementary School. She's 11 years old, and she's been taking piano lessons with Linda Young, who will meet very, very shortly. In April, last April, on International Organ Day, Leslie sat down at an organ bench for the first time, and she was so excited about the instrument that she applied for a scholarship. And she's only received 7 organ lessons. But according to her instructor Henry, she has made congratulations on becoming a Canadian last spring. David Carl. David Carl has been mentoring him and assisted him in the editing of this piece, and he will now play Stephen Parish's Prelude in E.
proud of Leslie, who performed your showcasing yet again how the organ can transcend its traditional roles and be used in modern, experimental, and futuristic contexts. Allow this next piece to guide you into a state of tranquility and mindfulness. The sustained notes and gentle undulations provide a perfect backdrop for quiet contemplation and inner peace. Let us take this moment to pause, breathe, and meditate together. Prepare to be mesmerized by the rich and dynamic sounds of the organ as it brings to life the unforgettable memories composed by the legendary composer John Williams. This performance will be a celebration of both the musical genius of Star Wars and the awe-inspiring capabilities of the play organ. Sit back and let the music guide you through the Star Wars galaxy. May the Force be with you as we enjoy this performance of Star Wars for Soul Organ. Kindly hold your applause until the end of the piece to avoid disturbing the balance of the Force.
Well, before I introduce the final performance of the afternoon, I'd really like to express heartfelt appreciations. Firstly, extend gratitude and thanks to St. Alphonsus Church for inviting us to present this concert this afternoon. And a special thank you to Mike Ricketts for his unwavering support and his encouragement. I want to give a huge shout out to Carmen Danner and Ron Dossenbach. You may not know, but the equipment we're using tonight, it's the first time we've ever used this since we've been part of it. And we were nervous about going into the afternoon, but I think the visuals serve the purpose. And we thank Carmen and Ron for their tenacity and making sure that we're able to enjoy the concert as much as we have this afternoon. I want to thank all of our performers, Mike, Ron, Marianne, Henry, Robert, David, Leslie, Margita, and especially Frederick Mooney, whom we are about to hear from now, our esteemed featured organist. We've tried in this concert to present you with all aspects of the organ. We wanted you to see the organ not only as a classical instrument with centuries and centuries of tradition and history, but also as an organ of the future. Not only as an organ that will continue to play its roles in liturgies and as an accompanying instrument, as a solo instrument, but also as a new innovative technology going forward. And we're encouraging young people to bring their favorite pieces and their musical training to learn the organ so that the future of the organ is ensured by our young generations. And so now I'm going to close the program. Ask Frederick to close the program for us with Marcel Dorfley's Prélude sur l'Antoine de la Famille, Opus 13. This is a radio gem of 20th century